Hello, everyone. We will be getting started in just a minute or two. A few folks are still trickling in, so if you want to grab a cup of coffee or lunch out of the microwave, go ahead and do that now, and we will get started in just another minute or two. All right, well, good morning to those of you out on the West Coast, and good afternoon to those that are a little bit further east. Welcome to Skills Matching in Baton Rouge. Very excited to be joined today by Andrew Fitzgerald and Maggie Spurlock with the Baton Rouge Area Chamber, as well as Matt Horning, a product manager here at Lightcast, and I'll do some more formal introductions in just a minute, but my name is Drew Rep. I'm a content manager here at Lightcast, and it's my pleasure to be hosting and facilitating our conversation today with the lovely folks from BRAC. Before we do jump into the presentations, just a few notes. We will be sending out the presentation shortly, so just watch for that in the next day or so. You should get that in your inbox. Also, if you have questions as we're going through presentations today, please do drop them into the question section of your control panel. We'll try to get those over to the presenters, and we'll also do a Q&A at the end, and we'll try to get to as many questions as we can, and even maybe try to aggregate some of the questions that are along the same theme or topic to try to cover as much as we can. So I thought I'd give us just a quick little roadmap of where we're going today. As far as our agenda, like I said, I'll introduce our presenters. We'll hear from Matt Horning a little bit about kind of the why and how of SkillFit, which is a component of the BR Works initiative. And then we'll hear from Andrew and Maggie about Baton Rouge and the Capital Region and the background of BR Works and the job seeker portal and how it connects job seekers with employers and helps employers find local talent. And then we'll also hear from them about just the importance of marketing. This was an initiative that had a very neat marketing push behind it as well to help folks learn about it and adopt the platform. And then we'll also learn about their future plans for BR Works. It's also neat how BRAC has just recognized that with an initiative like this, just the importance of iterating and keeping things moving along and finding different solutions. So we'll hear a little bit about their future plans and then the Q&A portion. So that's a little bit about where we're heading. As I said, would like to introduce more formally our speakers. We have Andrew Fitzgerald. As Senior Vice President of Business Intelligence, Andrew leads BRAC's research team, supporting the data and analysis needs of the organization. In terms of economic development, his team performs economic impact modeling, demographic research, and workforce benchmarking to help make the business case for the Capital Region. On the policy side, his team provides robust data to support the positions BRAC takes in its effort to ensure the state and region embrace pro-growth policies. Andrew received his BA in English and Rhetoric from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and his law degree from Indiana University. And then following law school, Andrew worked as an attorney in Chicago, focusing on corporate and commercial litigation. And we talk a lot about career pathways in this world, and Andrew kind of has a pretty neat one from corporate law to research and the chamber economic development world. So maybe buy him a virtual beer and hear a little bit about his career pathway from the law world to the chamber world. Maggi Spurlock. Maggi is the Director of Talent Development for the Baton Rouge Area Chamber. In this role, she leads all aspects of BRAC's talent development program, including talent attraction and orientation. She works in partnership with employers to provide services that complement existing human resources recruitment practices. Maggi comes to BRAC from LSU's first year experience office, where she served as the Senior Program Coordinator. During her time at LSU, she oversaw the development of the Student Veterans Office, Welcome Week, commuter programming, and faculty and staff engagement opportunities. She's a Baton Rouge native, and Maggi holds BAs in History and English from Louisiana State University. We were talking before the webinar about gumbo and jambalaya, so it also sounds like Maggi is your resident expert for finding good gumbo and jambalaya should you ever be in Louisiana. Sounds like Jazz Fest is a good time to take part in that. So need to have Maggi with us as well. And then Matt Horning. Matt is a product manager on the community team here at Lightcast and also the product designer for SkillFit. And SkillFit is a skills-based matching platform that we're going to hear about today, and it connects job seekers and employers and is supported by communities. He's been with Lightcast for 3 years, and in that time pursued his passion of unlocking new opportunities in the labor market. He has a background in coaching, teaching, and industrial design, which has equipped him with a unique set of skills to contribute towards SkillFit's mission. Having worked various jobs across the country, he empathizes with the challenges of job hunting and believes there's a better way to match job seekers with the right opportunities. So welcome, Andrew, Maggi, and Matt, and especially thank you to Andrew and Maggi. They have their annual meeting tomorrow. And for those of you in the chamber EDO world, you know how stressful and hectic that time can be. So a huge thank you to them for taking some time out of that schedule to join us and to share about their successes with BR Works. But now what I'm going to do is hand it over to Matt. As I mentioned, SkillFit is a major component of their BR Works initiative there in BRAC, and so wanted Matt to have the opportunity to share just a little bit of an introduction of how SkillFit works and kind of the why and how behind it. So I will hand it over to Matt.
Right, thank you, Drew. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Matt Horning. As Drew mentioned, I'm the product manager and product designer for SkillFit here at Lightcast. Before Maggi and Andrew share their story and approach, we thought it'd be helpful to provide some context about just a key component of their solution. We call it SkillFit, but they call it BR Works. So a little backstory: in 2020, our team at Lightcast was seeking new ways to support our community clients, which include workforce organizations, economic developers, chambers of commerce, industry associations, nonprofits, and many more. And if there's one thing that connects each of these groups, it's the desire to support and help people. So we started by researching job seeker pain points and found that many job seekers often use the common strategy of looking for months, plugging in a job title that they're interested in across multiple job boards, mass applying, and then oftentimes not hearing back. So as you can imagine, this leads to a lot of frustration. Now, equally important on the other side, lots of communities are struggling with the shrinking talent pool. Businesses are struggling to mitigate the issue. And we're looking for ways to increase the labor market efficiencies. So we believe our community clients are in a unique position to help their members or local employers find talent. So this led us to develop SkillFit, which is a job-seeking platform that matches skilled talent with local jobs and education opportunities based on their unique skills and interests. It really focuses on the importance of skills as the common denominator between employers, educators, and talent. If you've been following Lightcast, we've been talking about skills a lot. And so our community clients are the perfect type of leaders to connect those groups. Our goal with SkillFit is to empower communities and drive economic growth by combining a bottom-up and top-down approach. I'm sure many of you are familiar with our tool Developer, which provides that top-down view of a region, while SkillFit focuses on the bottom-up approach by delivering the same data in a helpful labor market information way to those job seekers so they can better understand and navigate those local opportunities. Baton Rouge caught on early what we were doing and has since helped us shape the user experience and provided key insights along the way. And we're continuing to have that communication and conversation with them and continuing to push on ways to grow this out. So our focus is really to better understand the relationships of a community and explore new ways to enhance and more effectively drive change. It's an evolving challenge and one that we at Lightcast are eager to support in several ways. Just a few things to point out here of the tool itself. From the job seeker's perspective, the value here is that we start with them. We understand their interests, their skills, and then match them to opportunities. And we use that by plugging in our Lightcast skills APIs and job feeds. And then we also help them understand any skill gaps they might have and then recommend education opportunities. And those can be local, those can be online. And then more importantly, we also need to build that skills-based resume. So those are some key components of the tool for the job seeker. And then for the community side, this growth is going to help build that actionable talent pipeline, connect your community stakeholders and resources, and then coming soon, some more user analytics to better understand, what skills do people have, what skills do people want to learn, what courses or education are they looking into, what jobs are they interested in, those types of questions. And of course, it's going to come with our Lightcast support. So at this time, I'd like to kick it back to Drew, but want to thank Maggie and Andrew for all their hard work doing the much harder part, which is actually implementing, marketing, and driving that change in their community.
Awesome, thanks, Matt. Matt, a question for you. How do job seekers go actually about essentially uploading their skills? Is it a self-selection process? And how do they, as far as their interests, how are those kind of entered into SkillFit?
Yeah, good question. So we start with an interest assessment using a Holland code assessment. So it's 30 quick questions, and they get an understanding of their traits. We even crosswalk that to potential skills they might have based on those traits. But even better, if they have a resume, they can upload that into the tool. And then we have a resume parsing tool that pulls out any of the skills text, which then we can help recommend. And then from there, they can self-select which ones they have. And so by building that inventory and adding those skills, we take that component, they've built a profile, and we can match them to job opportunities, in this case, regionalized to Baton Rouge, and that's focused on the skills to skills crosswalk.
Awesome, cool, thank you. All right, and with that, thanks, Matt. Yeah, like I said, we want to give the floor over to Andrew and Maggie, who are going to share about their BR Works initiative and just showcase a community that's had success using technology like SkillFit to connect job seekers and employers, and a little bit about what they have in store in this coming year. And they might mention it, but I wanted to congratulate them. I think they just celebrated their 1-year anniversary of BR Works now it'll be 2 months ago in January. So congratulations on a successful first year. And I will now hand the floor over to Andrew.
Thanks. I'd like to thank everybody at Lightcast for the chance to present this. They've been great partners to work with. We've worked with them historically on more the labor market data side, but when they brought this opportunity to us to almost beta test this platform, we really appreciated it. I wanted to start just by going over who we are, what the metro region consists of, to so you have a good idea of the base we were working with. Our population is just short of 900,000 people. We are a state capital. We have 2 land-grant universities, and we have a strong industrial base along the river. So we really see pretty consistent growth in government jobs, higher education, and in manufacturing. Those are 3 big areas for us. The pandemic obviously affected all of them in different ways. It's a fairly diverse economy, as you might think. Lightcast has ranked as the 13th most in the country. And we, as you can see in the chart to the left, job postings tanked, within the first year of the pandemic, and then boomed right back up to start hitting all-time highs afterwards, kind of late 2021, early 2022. So we knew there was a huge demand. As a regional economic developer, we're a nonprofit, and our investors, the people that donate to us, they were telling us at this time, we have just massive need for talent. So going into working with Lightcast, that's where our mindset was. One more thing, Maggie will touch on it later, but as a college town, we have a ton of young people coming through. and a good amount stick, but we always wish it was more. We see people maybe get their first job here after graduation. None of that 25 to 34-year-old cohort, we see people leaving and going to the Houstons, to Austin, to Atlanta. And so we also saw the tool that Lightcast presented as a possible talent retention, talent attraction tool. So Maggie, again, we'll touch on that in a little bit. We'll go to the next slide. Yeah, and so it was a tight labor market when we started talking to Lightcast, and unemployment was low, about 3%. And so it's kind of counterintuitive to start a job board when it seems like everybody has a job. But like I mentioned, the people that fund us said, we need to get these job postings in front of people in the community any way we can. And Baton Rouge didn't have a comprehensive regional specific job board for its metro area. So there was definitely a vacuum there that somebody needed to step up and fill. And the second part is, that the jobs and kind of the plenty didn't necessarily apply to every demographic group within the community. We knew, I have some examples right there, but obviously there are more. Unemployment for women with children was 10% or more. And, people with disabilities, nearly 20%. Young people, the people we want to retain in the region, had almost a 17% unemployment rate. So it was a good time to be a job seeker if you knew where to look for jobs, or if you were actually looking for a job. So that's the framing of when we started working on this project. I'll let Maggie talk more about the execution now.
Perfect. Next slide. All right, so a little background on BRWorks itself. So during the pandemic, in one of the first weeks, an employer came to us. They were in the process of really amping up their employee base. They were a grocer here in town, and obviously everybody was buying groceries at that time versus eating out. And so they were really looking to hire immediately and weren't really wanting to go through the full interview, the background and all of that. And so it really started out as a way to connect HR folks on the back end that were laying people off to those that were hiring. And then as we started having those conversations by week 2, it was not just that, it was, look, we're hiring. And so we had a Microsoft Word document with hyperlinks in it, and it was about 10 companies that first week of March 26th. And by the end of December 2021, we had about 235 employers on that list that I was going in and checking and updating. And so the day Andrew came to us and said, look, there's this new thing, I didn't even need more explanation. We were absolutely in from the word go. And so at the same time, that investor came to us and said, look, this is the technology we need this for our region, here's the money, go forth. And so we worked with one of our other investors to build out the framework that the iframe sits into to make the site pretty and look nice, and also working on that marketing campaign behind it. And so January 18th, as previously mentioned, was our launch date, and it was off with a bang. We were very excited kind of where we got started, and really the response that we were seeing on analytics and the use of it, and even anecdotally, people that we knew were maybe looking for positions. I knew someone specifically that within a few weeks found a job that was readily available to him within the company he was working for that he didn't even know about. And so that was really exciting. And then as we grew the page, we realized that upskilling portion was going to be really key, because with those skills, we could see what some of those skills were, but we know that there's kind of that gap. And how do we help people with the upskilling portion? And while the page already had some national opportunities for upskilling on it, we wanted to make sure our regional partners were included in that. So our regional higher ed partners, Andrew and I both started meeting with them, having those conversations, and so they are all on board. But I mean, even up to one of the local truck driving academies, one of the local smaller in technology companies is like, look, we've got courses too. So anybody that has come to us and said, we want our courses on there, we have added them because we want those opportunities out there for people. And so as of this morning, and those are actually literally from this morning, I checked our Google Analytics today and dropped those numbers in. We're at 92,000 plus views and over 16,000 unique users, which is really exciting for us. I think one of the newest things that we're working on really is that next step is getting those profiles created so we can look at that back end data. But for us, we really believe that obviously the tool itself is amazing. working with Matt and Adriana. I mean, they've been amazing. I've gone to them with some requests that are probably a little crazy, and I get a whole lot of, yeah, we'll put that in the queue and we'll look at that and we'll talk about it. And then some of them are absolutely, we can do that, and we're getting on that right away. But the other key part of it really is that marketing piece. And so I know I've spoken with other cities that are looking to do similar, and I can't stress enough the marketing piece. So the first thing really, if you can go to the next slide, was that piece with just grassroots media attention. So you can kind of see on there when we launched, when we're doing the matching and all kind of things. So it's radio, it's news, it's social media, all of it matters. And you can see, you know, Andrew may do an interview with one of our local news stations, and our numbers on analytics may be kind of sedentary. And then that week you'll see a jump of 100, 200 people just from a news story, or one of us will do a radio ad or a radio interview with one of our local guys that does a morning radio spot, and you'll see a jump that week. And it's no cost to us, it's just getting it in the news. And so really that's free. Use those kind of things that you can if this is something that you're looking at. Next page. The other piece, yes.
Quick question. You know, you mentioned all the employers and some of the training programs coming on board, and we hear a lot about skills-based hiring, and so this is almost this skills-based talent sourcing, and so I would assume with a lot of those companies, you know, they aren't necessarily large businesses. I think you mentioned a grocer. What was the first one? And so I don't know, maybe they do have skills-based hiring in place, but maybe taking the skills approach is still pretty new to them. What have you kind of heard from employers about, I guess, this method? You know, if we were to say the old method was looking at, you know, resumes and what degree people have and previous job titles, and now this new method of sourcing talent through skills matching, what's kind of been their response to it, or what have you heard from them?
Sure. I mean, we've definitely heard that some people, especially now that we're really pushing that profile piece, are wanting to know the skills piece of being able to match people. And just yesterday we had our economic development group in for the state, and they work with groups that are really trying to help upstarts. And so I told them, I was like, you know, that's the next thing that we're really pushing is working with groups like them and sharing some of those skills matching on the back end. And they were very excited about the idea of being able to source talent directly that way. I think once we get more robust profiles and more of those skills on that back end, I think we're going to really start pushing that piece of connecting folks with the skills that way.
Yeah, and Drew, I think that we're seeing locally kind of what people are saying nationally, where when it's such a tight labor market, it's like, can the person do the job? It's more important than how well coiffed are they?
Yeah.
And, you know, I think from a governmental side, you've seen that Pennsylvania, I think Maryland both drop, you know, bachelor degree requirements for state government jobs, for, you know, 60, 70, 80,000 state government jobs. And I think that's one spot that the public sector actually moved a little bit more quickly than the private sector. You know, tech companies here have always been kind of like, can the person code? You know, can they do the IT work? But you're starting to see that more, especially in jobs that don't necessarily have the occupational requirements, occupational certification requirements like doctor, lawyer. But you're definitely seeing that a lot more, especially in the services industry.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Perfect. Cool. So again, grassroots, this is our Twitter page where you can kind of see the day that we launched on January 18th. Check it out. We had that piece where you could watch one of the commercials, which we'll chat about. And we did a very, and again, this is where really look at what your staff can do. And by staff, I mean me. So I legitimately sat in one of our rooms and recorded a Zoom of kind of how the page works, whether that's for an employer or the job seeker. And admittedly, we actually probably need to update that because now like I said, we have bumped up that profile creation step. And so that's there a little bit. And then more being able to share with employers about the skills piece matching. So there's always room for improvement, and that was legitimately earlier this year. So within 2 months' time, we're ready to already look at how we're going to revamp that. And then we also have when we updid and add the upskilling piece that was on Twitter, and that was information we shared. And then again, the 1-year anniversary. And so again, we already had a lot of that collateral. It was just a matter of working and updating what that graphic would look like to be able to share with our communities. And again, the week and every single day after this, or the week after, and almost the day after, we could see a bump in numbers of people going and checking out the site. So again, even on Twitter, and it's just kind of grassroots efforts. The next page is a little more of an obvious thing. So these were billboards that we did in town. Again, the same work, a lot of the same repetition of what you'll see. I think I was especially excited about this. I have probably about a 20-minute commute to work, and it is a little exciting when you're driving down the road and you're like, oh my gosh, that billboard, that's what we're doing, and that's our work. And again, when those run on those digital billboards, we see our numbers go up, and we know people are looking at the site, they're hammering in, they're looking, and not just users using it. I should also say that it's super interesting after one of those radio spots or television news stories or the billboards release, I'll get an influx of employers, reaching out to me. How do I get on board? One of the institutions here in town, how do I get my careers and how do I get my skills courses up there? So it's not just the user experience, it's also the business and the higher ed piece. And I think Andrew and I both would probably say that a lot of our smaller institutions jumped really quickly at having their skills added. It was maybe some of our larger institutions that we kind of really had to court them to get them. And I think there was really a piece of, wait, the other schools are on board, their courses are there, we're starting to see the billboards, we're starting to see the commercials, and we're not on there, we've got to get on there, and we're, the flagship or one of the other large schools. And so sometimes that literally a billboard or that marketing piece can kind of pressure in your partners to get on board as well. And so those billboards were helpful, especially with getting some of those businesses to reach out. On the next slide, you can kind of see an opportunity of what our digital advertising would do. And so these were kind of fun little digital non-static images that would go out, click through to see the site and that kind of information that we could share. And again, a kind of a good example is we had some grant funding left over January of this year that had to get spent, and we hem and hawed, and we were like, the billboards are great, but we know for sure the digital ad is where we see the most benefit. And so legitimately we dropped in those digital ads with that grant funding that we had, and our number, they didn't triple, but they for sure doubled within a week of these going back out into the airways, so on digital. So really looking at, we took our time, we kind of knew when the billboards ran, we looked at those numbers, we knew when the digital pieces were running, looked at the numbers, and then when the commercials ran and looked at the numbers. So we were able to evaluate which options worked best for us. And so that kind of really made a big difference as well. And
on that
question, yep.
Yeah. How did you have a pretty targeted audience you were going after for it? Talking about the kind of the 24 to 35-year-olds, potentially leaving the region. What kind of audience were you particularly targeting, or was it a pretty broad reach?
So I'll start, and Maggie will address more the actual advertising marketing side of it. But for me, I started off talking about there are pockets of demographic groups that aren't having the same success finding work, despite there being a low unemployment rate. So we, on the front end, worked really closely with our local workforce development board to ensure that every person that was going in there and saying, I just lost my job, or I'm looking for a job, that we had a stack of collateral right there to be handed to them. So if they want to use the computers out front at the workforce development board building, they'd say, oh, let's go to BR Works. So we kind of targeted working with the library also. They have a small business unit that has a sort of a career center involved in it. And so we wanted to make sure, number one, that we were targeting parts of the community that weren't experiencing employment success. but then the actual advertisement was Maggie's team.
Yeah, and so we were really careful about, I think we had a list of about 30 or 40 what we considered were community partners. So those job places, the library, some of our larger employers, some of maybe one of the Exxon plants, things like that. We really reached out. Those first few months, I did a lot of demos of the site. I would, getting on calls, chatting it through, talking, letting them see it, letting them see how it worked. And so a lot of them use those. We knew that there were definitely specific communities that we wanted to make sure that we really got into. One thing we even talked about at one point was, do we do bus ads, or, the benches that, are at the buses, and we kind of have waited on that. But yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing, that the other piece of that profile creation that is going to be pivotal, I think, in the coming year as we really look at that data is, we've talked a lot about, is it a zip code? Is it a skill set? Is it knowing what it's industry specific that we want to look at? And then do we really start pushing in those areas based on that? So it is something that we're looking at in a different way for the coming year moving forward.
We had a question come in, kind of going back to the education partners, and
Sure.
mentioned some of the smaller schools came on board a little quicker. This question says, how do you support higher ed providers in keeping their courses current and up to date? So maybe, yeah, just a little bit more about kind of how that relationship works. I'd also be curious, is it particular, departments that you're seeing, that are kind of more willing or able to get their coursework and their skills and their programs into the tool and that sort of thing. So maybe just a little bit more about that relationship.
Yeah, so this is something we lucked out in that our higher ed partners are already all meeting with businesses, with both their CEOs and HR leads on a quarterly basis through a K through 12 program we have, Talent Action Collaborative, in which it's basically kind of a dual enrollment type thing where kids in high school are earning skills, getting credentials. And through that, my research team twice a year uses the MZ Lightcast job posting analytics and just says, what are the top 5 jobs in healthcare? What are the top 5 in tech? What are the top 5 in yada, yada, heavy industry? Not only what 5 jobs, but what skills are they? Okay, tech, you want a computer programmer. What are the coding languages, right? Like, is it SQL? Is it Python? And so they're already kind of armed with that robust skills-based data on like what employers in the region are actually looking for on a regular basis. And so if not, we would have to kind of gut check when we're looking at, they're uploading this computer course that was, the syllabus was made in 1992. Like, well, that's obviously not going to work. So we're working with those partners on other initiatives and kind of helping them, because they're brilliant, they're great at what they do, but they don't necessarily have the economic development expertise of just sifting through job posting analytics and finding out what the employers are actually looking for. But that is super key. In 2013, IBM came to Baton Rouge, and they basically worked with the state to completely redo the computer science department at LSU because it was just so far behind the times. So I think in general, there are opportunities, kind of public-private partnerships, when employers aren't necessarily getting what they need. Instead of just hiring from out of market, let's go to the trainers and help them.
Yeah, and another thing that we, I think for our larger higher ed institutions, I think they were concerned, do we need to upload our whole course book, which was not the case. If you're going to take English 1001, you're really going to be there as a traditional student doing the whole thing. And so LSU Online is probably a really great example of, they were the first ones that, yes, let's get all of this on there, because it was already an online option. They were already eager to help and get more students added to that. So that was kind of like probably one of the best examples of one of the groups in regards to who we worked with, that once they got on board, they were like, here's everything all at once.
And really for them, so the LSU Online, what was most exciting to me was kind of the micro credentials. So you're an accountant, you're looking at a job on BR Works, and it's for forensic accounting, but you don't have any experience in that. Well, it links you. You can click, I wanted that forensic accounting experience. Oh, there's an LSU microcred that's like 2 courses, and I then have the experience for this job that I want, but I'm not necessarily qualified for yet. So that's kind of a perfect example, is you have a bachelor's, but you need this sort of like little beyond experience thing, and LSU has a program related to it, and you can find it through BR Works.
That's awesome. Yeah, that skills gap filling is really neat. I'm gonna advance a slide here just so people don't get hypnotized by
the yes. Well, and so perfect. Again, advertising. There is one more thing. Jokingly, I told Andrew, I was like, oh, if I could get the screen capture, I would show it. And I just could not get it. But we joked around, our library downtown has a very large outdoor display screen. And at all of their locations, they run some of the ads on their display screen. But if there's anybody's looking for an Easter egg, if they're watching the Disney Channel, the Disney National Treasure TV show, there is an Easter egg in one of the episodes in the scenery of downtown Baton Rouge. You can actually see the BR Works ad on one of the sides of the library on the TV show. I think it's in one of the first or second episodes. So if you're really looking for something interesting and fun, watch at least the first 2 episodes, and you can see a BR Works ad yourself there, which is super fun. But in lieu of that, we also have real commercials. If you want to go ahead and click on that first one, and then we can chat about it after that first top left one plays.
Sure, we'll get everything muted here.
You know that feeling you get when you find the perfect job? You will. brworks.org will match you with local jobs here in Baton Rouge that best fit your skills and experience. Go from job search to career match at brworks.org.
Again, feel free to look at all of them at your leisure once y'all get the recording and can look at the PowerPoint. But another really great example of those commercials, it's just a really great way having those on, running on TV during some, really weirdly, there were some major, award shows or sporting events that they would run, which was super fun to see those. And they also had shorter versions of these that we also use digitally. But again, using your local folks or members from your team. So the voiceover for that is actually our CEO, Adam Knapp. And the wife is played by my colleague on the marketing team, Kelsey. And the little girl is actually Kelsey's niece. So use the talent that you have in your office for everything possible. But again, can't say it enough about the marketing piece, how much, these would start running and our numbers went up. To be honest, this was probably one of the largest areas that we saw one of the largest bumps in numbers when we ran these commercials. So really doing those is great. It's a tangible number increase that you can see. Again, we talked a lot about working with y'all has been fantastic in getting everything that we need to be able to put, whether it was the flame graphic that we wanted to use in the commercial or just the still shots, y'all were fantastic on that as well. You look like you had a question.
Yeah, so it seems like the marketing is working really well as far as getting more. You're seeing that user bump, and even then employers reaching out. And we kind of have a question from Beth with Chamber RVA. When implementing the platform, what obstacles did you encounter, maybe from the employer side or higher ed side? So maybe just a little bit of maybe some stumbling blocks that you came across.
I'll say we kind of talked about the higher ed piece, but it is kind of an ask to say this wasn't in your strategic plan for this year, but can you help scrape like the syllabus and stuff for all these courses? And it would just put a lot on their plate to begin with, but they saw the value in it and they were willing to work and they put in the time, and so we end up working through it. But you have to realize on the front end, I got all annoyed about it, but it's like we are asking a lot out of them. And so it really is kind of be patient, work with them. That was just kind of a thing that early on was a hiccup.
Yeah, we've joked a lot about we're on the train while the train is running and being built, going full speed all at the same time. So I think we've been kind of remember to be patient with ourselves as we're doing it. The one challenge I think a lot that was kind of there when we started, and I still have the challenge with today on the business side, we were lucky in the fact that because I had been doing the manual updating for a year, we had a spreadsheet with all the links to the actual hiring pages for a lot of the businesses that we already had, right? So we already had the link to the specific page. I think the challenge has been with that is some people don't use an option that is scrapable. So they may just like, it's a post or it's one of those autofill to apply for a job, and it's not actually scrapable material. And so there's been some conversations with folks about, well, you know, I want to share my job, and I look at their page before I usually even respond to them, and I can know by looking at it, it may not work. And so we actually had a realtor 2 weeks ago that I had a conversation with, and I talked to him, I was like, look, you legitimately need to make this one easy change on your website to make this work, and then once you've done it, it'll be scrapable. And so he's looking at doing that on his website. So I think kind of having those conversations about making it easy for y'all to be able to scrape the data is what's important. I think the other thing from the standpoint of actually what the jobs are, and I think the salary has been a really tricky one. So a lot of employers are very hesitant to include the salary of the position. So we obviously, because of the data, we have the average salary as a part of what it looks like when they're looking at the job, but a lot of times it'll be blank for what the salary actually is. And I've had feedback from somebody that's like, that is not even close to what we're paying for this job, the average. And I'm like, okay, but what are you paying? Well, we have a range. And I'm like, great. But for transparency's sake and for inclusion's sake, you really want to make sure that you're putting all of the information out there, and salary is a part of it. So I think if you can have those conversations, I think you mentioned she was a chamber as well, having those conversations with your local businesses about including that is huge. And I think there's a national trend of people being more transparent with the salary. So I would think those were kind of our two bigger challenges, at least with the businesses.
Yeah, it also seems like just a great way to, you know, essentially have more business visits, more connections with businesses, and more conversations. So that's awesome. Don't want to rush you along, but this next
perfect. So future plans, actually, and today is our big day for this. We released in February a request for proposal. We're going to start working on a new talent attraction site, and so that will work hand in hand with this. Obviously, we'll be referring out to BR Work. So it's come and live in Baton Rouge. We love it here. It's great here, but here's how you can get a job too. And today is the day that those proposals are all rolling in. And so that will be the next portion of this within the coming year. As Andrew mentioned, the Talent Action Collaborative is another really great way that we're funneling talent and skills in through the jobs here regionally. And Handshake is another piece that we work with the higher ed institutions on as well. So all of that is a part of our whole talent strategy. Again, for those that are kind of looking, really look at who your community partners are. I listed just kind of who some of ours are that we've spoken with. We also have some job fairs coming up that will be part of some of that ARP funding that we're going to be using. And again, using those higher education partners to really drive home those skills and making sure we're funneling people through getting those skills that they need for those jobs that we want to keep people here for.
Great. Well, I think what we'll do now, we will go over to our question and answer time. And so if you have any questions, there's been some that have come in, and so we'll try and get to those. If you have any additional questions, please do share. But also, we are going to put up a poll. My colleague Ben is going to put that up, and so we'll just give folks just a little bit of time to work on that. And once that's done, we will jump into the question portion. So this might be kind of a question for Matt, and there's kind of been a few different things around it. You know, one of the questions is kind of just about kind of APIs, skills API, job feeds, I guess coursework, how coursework is pulled into the platform. And so I guess, I consider myself a bit of a layman when it comes to things like APIs and things like that. And so maybe just if you're able to give kind of a layman's explanation of how that data comes in, kind of both from kind of the job side, skills side, coursework, just how it gets into the tool.
Sure. So yeah, the whole platform is based on skills, and so you need to skillify each component of the tool, starting with the job seeker. That's a lot of self-assessing, and then the job side. If you're familiar with our developer tool, we've got the job posting analytics, and we do a lot of that skill work ahead of time. So those two components are pretty much plug and play for us. But the education side is the bigger challenge. We want to skillify the content and the coursework, and so we actually have our education department has built tools around this. And so we've been leveraging those tools to help do that work. It's a lot of sometimes very manual work, but sometimes we can use that tool they already have to do a lot of the work for us. And then there's some quality checking before we actually put it into an API and then upload it in the tool.
Great, thank you. Kind of a question around metrics of, are you able to gather metrics on hires versus views? Essentially, how far along in the process are you able to follow a user? And so maybe that's for Matt or maybe Andrew and Maggie.
Yeah, so I know Andrew and Maggie have their analytics around users and who's visited the site. On our side, we try to collect those analytics of what's actually happening with the tool, what buttons are being clicked, and those things. Because our job posting feed is really an aggregate of around the country, the pro there is that when you are using this tool, it's going to come with those job postings already embedded, and we're pulling from local job boards, state job boards, company websites, bigger job boards as well. And so there's a good chance that a lot of the jobs in your area are already going to come with this tool. And so what that means is when a job seeker is going through the tool, the farthest we can track them is after they've applied. So when they hit the apply button, they link off of our site to the actual job page where they're applying. And so that's as far as we can get with tracking them. But it's an elusive question that we want to keep pushing on.
Sure. I might have missed this too, but there's a mention of TAC, and the question is, how is TAC differentiated from BRWorks?
Sure. So yeah, we use way too many acronyms for everything, but TAC is a K through 12 initiative. Really, if you saw like TAC K through 12, you have Handshake, which is internship for college students. Then you have BRWorks, which is more starting your professional career to mid-career. So we try to cover K through mid-career. Talent Action Collaborative, we started an initiative where probably 50 of the more high-powered companies, CEOs, basically attend a quarterly meeting. They also have a different quarterly meeting for all the HR professionals for those 50 companies. And we subdivided basically filling jobs into 5 different pillars. So industry, which would be construction plus manufacturing, healthcare, tech, and so on. And basically they get together every quarter to talk about, it's putting every high school in our East Baton Rouge school district will eventually be in this program that we piloted at one school last year, but essentially saying your last 2 years of high school, you're getting skilled training of some sort. It might be, just some more soft skill classes. It might be getting NCCER certification through kind of the industrial partner. It might be learning some coding languages, the tech corridor, but you sort of pick a path and you're gonna have an option of, do you just wanna graduate with some skills and go straight in the workforce, or do you wanna take the path where you might get some credentials, but it just leads into naturally a 4-year degree also. And so the analytics that we're actually getting from Lightcast in terms of job postings informs the curriculum for those that kind of high school training part of it. So it's the same back-end data. It's job postings that are appearing on BRWorks, but we're looking at the analytics side of it and then programming coursework and curriculum through that.
That's great. I'm going to share my screen again here. One moment. And just to give Andrew and Maggie and Matt's information, There was a question around kind of your budget around marketing, and so thought, maybe that's one where it'd be best to reach out to you guys individually to discuss that. But Andrew and Maggie have been very generous that if anyone has any additional questions, they would be pleased to chat with you about their work. And actually, now it looks like this poll is up. So sorry, I had a little snafu earlier on, but this poll is up. If you want to take a moment to take that. Thank you also to Matt. He can also answer any more additional technical questions. And I guess with that, just thank you so much, Andrew and Maggie. Best of luck with the annual meeting tomorrow. And it's been a pleasure doing this webinar with you all, and it's been a pleasure working with you on the BR Works initiative.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt.